Tillman Hall. Not only one of the more iconic buildings at Clemson University, but also one of the more controversial. It is obvious why Tillman is associated so strongly with Clemson University. It is a beautiful, tall, brick building overlooking Clemson's Bowman Field, directly across from the Visitor Center in downtown Clemson. It is also one of just 3 remaining original buildings left on Clemson's campus, along with Hardin Hall and Godfrey Hall. Anyone visiting Clemson is struck by the building's beauty. Tillman Hall is also prominent for those who can't even see it. The clock tower has some of the loudest and most beautiful bells, which ring throughout the day and tell you the time, but also play beautiful melodies. Many students hold this building true to their heart. However, many students loathe the building that sits overlooking the campus in Bowman Field. It is called Tillman because of Benjamin Tillman, also known as Pitchfork Ben Tillman. Benjamin Tillman is not only an integral father in the founding of Clemson University, but also an incredibly controversial figure due to his actions while he was in office as the governor of South Carolina and a senator of South Carolina, and also his actions prior to being elected. Benjamin Tillman was the governor of the state of South Carolina when Clemson was founded in 1893. The iconic clock tower building was also constructed at this time. For 50 years, the building was referred to as the Main Building, or simply Old Main. In 1943, Tillman's son, William Tillman, led a campaign to have the building named after his father. He believed that the school and its current students were forgetting about his father's legacy as one of the 7 lifetime trustees, and they also thought they were forgetting about his role as one of the main founders of Clemson. As part of a celebration of the school's 50th graduating class, Clemson University changed the name from Old Main to the current name Tillman Hall. Benjamin Tillman, before becoming state governor, was an activist who wanted to establish an agricultural school in South Carolina. As we all well know, Thomas Green Clemson, upon his death in 1888 at the age of 81, left the land of Fort Hill and the estate and an $80,000 endowment to the state of South Carolina in order to entrust a land-grant university focused on agricultural studies. Clemson also named Benjamin Tillman one of the 7 trustees for life. These trustees were given also the power to appoint their successors. Tillman pushed the idea of using Clemson's land and the land grant to establish the school. In 1889, the governor at the time signed the Clemson Bill, which was integral in helping found the school. Tillman rode the success of establishing Clemson University into the governor's office in 1890 and remained governor until 1894. Tillman served as a senator from 1895 until his death in 1918. Tillman was an important figure that served the state of South Carolina and also helped establish Clemson University, a school that is now ranked in one of the top 20 best public schools in the United States. But the issue at hand is that Tillman was also quite controversial due to his many racist actions and beliefs. It is obvious that without the work of Benjamin Tillman, things would be very different today at Clemson University. If Tillman did not push for the establishment of an agricultural school in South Carolina, we may not be debating whether there should be a building named after him because Clemson University itself might not exist. Tillman did play a huge role in the establishment of the school. We don't deny that. Despite some of his questionable actions, Benjamin Tillman is a lifetime trustee of Clemson. Again, he is still a trustee of Clemson University from Benjamin Tillman. In schools, the dark chapters of history are still taught. These chapters include slavery of all races across the world, the Holocaust, and many other pieces of history that we may want to forget. However, these eras of history did happen, and all we can do now is learn from the mistakes and not repeat these mistakes again. We can learn from Benjamin Tillman and his actions, just as we can learn from the horrible actions that may have occurred during the times of slavery or during other genocides or terrible acts throughout history. We can also learn from the good things Tillman did, such as establish a school. Finally, despite his actions, Tillman was a servant to the state of South Carolina. He spent his entire life fighting for change in the state he beloved. He did do some great things, obviously, such as establish Clemson. Despite Benjamin Tillman's integral role in the founding of Clemson, his racist actions oftentimes and in many people's minds can outweigh the benefit of him creating the school in the first place. A university as prominent as Clemson University should not be honoring a man who did things as terrible as Benjamin Tillman. If Clemson University is going to name anything after Tillman, it should not be the most iconic building on their campus. When we honor someone, we say a lot about ourselves. If we are honoring someone like Benjamin Tillman, then what are we saying about our university? Do we share the beliefs of Benjamin Tillman? Or does the name exist because of his role in the founding? Tillman was a white supremacist who spoke out against blacks frequently and even embarrassed them and ridiculed them on the floor of the State House. And although he appeared to have a stance that was against lynching, 18 lynchings occurred while he was in office. During the 1890s, while Tillman was in power, more lynchings occurred in South Carolina than any other decade in state history. Few convictions came from all these lynchings. However, Tillman was not just a racist, he was a murderer. Tillman bragged about his participation in the Hamburg Massacre of 1876. 7 men were killed in this massacre, including 6 black men. Although Tillman was indicted, along with 96 other men, no conviction ever came from this massacre. The massacre was instead blamed on factory workers and Irish immigrants who crossed into the town. Instead of being convicted for this massacre, Benjamin Tillman gained public popularity and later used this massacre to his advantage in one of his political campaigns as he was going to be elected governor. He also boasted about being a member of the Red Shirts, a militia group which was formed due to the federal government's breakup of the Ku Klux Klan. On the floor of the South Carolina Senate, Tillman would not only ridicule black people, but brag about killing them. And this even helped his campaign to be elected. Benjamin Tillman was not only a racist, white supremacist, but a murderer. Does founding a college really make up for these atrocious actions? Do we really want the name of someone like Benjamin Tillman so prominently displayed on such an iconic building? Is this the image we want associated with our campus? It is not just these historical facts which merit a name change. It is the great discomfort from students and faculty because of the name. Many feel uncomfortable due to the fact that this iconic building was named after such a terrible person. But now it's important for us to ask students what their opinion is about changing the name of Tillman.
Yeah, I've heard about it being really big, especially this past fall, with racism being a big issue. Ben Tillman, who Tillman Hall is named after, was he was a racist and pretty extreme, even so for his time. I know that he spoke in favor of lynch mobs, and a lot of people from the African American background saw that as it was a sensitive topic for them to have a building named after somebody who was adamantly opposed to their race, basically. I think racism as a whole, it will always be an issue. It's never going to be completely resolved. And that's just, it's sad, but it's true. You're always going to have somebody that doesn't agree with somebody else over superficial things such as the color of the skin or your ethnicity and your background. Um, as far as how it relates on Clemson, I know it was a big topic with Yik Yak and what people said on there and social media sites, what was being said and how it was affecting people. However, for the people who weren't on Clemson's campus actually viewing how life went about every day here, you can easily see that while those posts were being made, the life of Clemson didn't change. You didn't have people quit associating with someone of a different race. You didn't have people getting violent and angry with each other just because of topics about race. So I think like most of the social media was just people just trying to add fuel to a fire that wasn't really a problem to begin with. And it still isn't. If you look on campus, you might have a few people who are deemed as quote racist, but they associate with people of other races, hang out with each other, study with each other, go to functions with each other, play sports with each other, and it's not really as big of an issue as what social media and media in general made it out to be. I don't think the name should be changed, because regardless of the person he was, Ben Tillman, he did do a lot for the school. Not saying that Clemson University wouldn't have happened without Ben Tillman, but I don't know if it would have happened nearly as fast and been nearly as big. Another reason I wouldn't want to change it is, it is our past. You can't change your past. You have to accept it for what it is. It's past is the reason you're here today. Things happened in the past that got you to where you are today, and so you can't just change your past. And I think the big thing is we should learn to embrace our past. And yeah, he wasn't a great guy, but he did this for the school, and that's what he was honored for. The building wasn't for other things he did. The building was named after him because of what he did for the university. And furthermore, another reason is just, where do you draw the line on renaming things? If you just look at people who are offended by something, are you going to rename it? Because that's going to be a slippery slope, even for Clemson University. Just Clemson University on a small scale. If we rename Ben Tillman, or Tillman Hall, if we rename it for something else, then what's to keep the Strom Thurmond Center from being renamed? Well, yes, he wasn't the best, and he did apologize, and he tried to kind of make his ends meet, kind of get back and show that he wasn't as racist as like his past had indicated, but that's still going to offend somebody. Somebody's still offended by it. I can guarantee it. And you're going to have people who are going to be offended by everything that happens. And I'm sure no one's perfect, so like all the buildings on campus are named after people. Everything, and when you start blowing it out bigger, you have another Tillman Hall in at Wofford, I believe, and not Wofford, Winthrop. And anyway, are you going to start renaming buildings on every campus? Are you going to start renaming monuments, Washington monuments and stuff like? This is what happened, but at the same time, you gotta look at what they did and the reason that their name is being, I guess, immortalized there. What they're being recognized for. It's not their flaws and their failures or shortcomings, but it's their successes and what they did for the university, this country, whatever the memorial's there for.
Honestly.
I think that Tillman Hall and the whole Tillman debate was kind of used as a litmus test for whether or not administrators would respond positively to student needs on campus. I think that there were a lot of people throughout, faculty, staff, graduate, undergraduate students, that felt really uncomfortable and still feel really uncomfortable. And a name change isn't going to make that better necessarily, but I think that it was a good indicator of how bad racial tensions on this campus really are, that we respond more strongly to something of that gravity, like something that really, like, we understand the roadblocks, we understand why it would be difficult to change Tillman's name. However, it's been more indicative for me, and I think for a lot of individuals on campus, the way that other people have responded so vehemently in opposition, that there's a real problem on this campus, just regarding race and regarding creating not just an environment of tolerance, but one of acceptance. And I just don't think that we're there yet, and this whole Tillman debate has really, unfortunately or fortunately, shown a lot of light on that. I think, so it's like a multi-pronged argument in rebuttal to keeping the name of Tillman what it is. I think that, first of all, we're going to be left in the dust. I think that a lot of other really prestigious schools are changing the names of their buildings that are named after people that were bigoted individuals or were known for prejudice. Tillman committed a massacre. Tillman is celebrated in history for a massacre. So that in itself is disquieting at best. But on top of that, I think that when students feel uncomfortable and when they feel like their safety is threatened and when they feel like their peers aren't being taught to accept people that look like them, and something as simple as a building name change could be an indication that administration is on their side and they're working towards better programming for students that don't necessarily identify with the norm, whether that be racially or by their sexual orientation or whatever, may kind of set them apart from the Clemson mold that, Thomas Green Clemson would not have them here for whatever reason. I think that it's important that we listen to those students. I think that when the grievances and demands came out, the initial response from a lot of students was like, why are they all assembling? Clemson's perfect. And I think that if we're really gonna look at our college experience objectively, we want to be able to make it a better place. And I think that making it a more inclusive place, whether that means changing the name of a building or building a multicultural center or creating better access to resources for students in need, it all kind of goes hand in hand. I don't think that the Tillman name change is gonna change everything regarding race on campus, but I do think that it's a good way to show students that we're on their side. And on top of that, in 50 years, we're going to change it, regardless of whether we like it or not. It's going to become embarrassing enough at some point that it's going to go.
Go.
I believe that if Clemson is going to be a school of the 21st century and is going to be a top 20 university, there is no reason for there to be a building on this campus named after such a terrible, backwards thinking human. I think that it all starts with changes that people see when they first start to visit Clemson's campus, and what type of reputation are we setting for our school when the first thing you see is the main building named after a terrible, terrible, terrible person who's done terrible things to people who are really undeserving of having those terrible things happen to them. I think that there are a lot of other changes that need to be made, but I think that making Tillman's name back to Old Main will be the first step in the right direction. I think that obviously there are many, many microaggressions working on Clemson's campus today, but we also need to think about the big picture things that we need to change. And I really, really urge the Board of Trustees to unanimously vote to change the name of Tillman. Well, the slippery slope argument is totally invalid in this case, I believe, just because why can't we change all the buildings' names? Why would we stand for having buildings named after backwards thinking people on this campus if we want to be a progressive school and really want to move Clemson forward? Why would we ever want to be stuck in the past and really represent the school in a negative light by having our main buildings on campus named after such terrible people.
Yeah, definitely. So the debate on Tillman is obviously highly controversial on Clemson's campus right now. I personally think that the best course of action with deciding on which side you want to be on or how you feel about the debate, everyone really needs to be educated about who Ben Tillman was, some of the things that he did, what he did for Clemson, what he did politically, what type of person he was, and ultimately be able to make an educated decision for themselves. So I think that's the most critical thing, is being able to assess the situation, make sure they know the facts, and then decide for them as an individual what they think is going to be the best thing. With the debate, with the topic being such a big topic of debate on Clemson's campus, with student government being representative of what students think and what students feel and the big issues that are going on with students on campus, I definitely think it's something that needs to be discussed. It's something student government needs to be aware of, and moving from there, what type of action we can see, what we think would be the best and most representative of what Clemson students are thinking and feeling.